Mr. Hall said, my name is Steve Weglarz. My little oyster farm is called Cedar Point Shellfish. And the farm is actually right over there, right across the channel here at the mouth of the Oyster River. It's 2 acres, and it's not very deep water. Actually, at real low tide, some of this gear starts to poke out at the surface of the water. So it's marked by 4 buoys on the corners. And in some areas of New England, there are huge piles of shell called middens, which the Indians piled up there over the years and years that they made their camps down by the waterfront. And I think in the summertime is when they were down here. And it just shows how much shellfish they did. Another benefit of the oysters is that they actually help the water of the bay as they feed the plankton out of the water. I'm sure those guys mentioned that they filter feed, and they just remove the plankton, and as they do that, they reduce some of the nitrogen that's out there. And that's a good thing, because there's really too much nitrogen in the water out there right now. So oysters are helping offset that problem too while they're growing and making yummy food for us. Again, as they probably mentioned, at one time there were huge oyster reefs and beds in areas like this in the bay, and they were over-harvested by the colonists, and they pull them out even during the winter. They'd cut holes in the ice, which was actually sometimes easier than doing it from a boat in the summertime. Cut holes in the ice and scoop them out, and it was really tough on the oyster population because they couldn't reproduce quick enough to keep up with the harvesting. Now there are groups like the Nature Conservancy helping restore some of those natural reefs, and rules from Fish and Game that limit who can harvest and when and where. And some of those reefs up in the Great Bay itself back there are off limits to any harvesting. So we are only allowed to farm the oysters in Little Bay. The best time to eat an oyster is actually in the fall or winter, around the holidays, because an oyster, obviously it's in the water, and it can sense when the water temperature is dropping. In the fall, it says, oh, winter's coming, I better get ready for the winter, because there's very little plankton out here for them to eat in the wintertime, so they're getting ready to hibernate. So they bulk up with food and store fat inside their shells, and that's what they survive on until the food chain kicks in and they start to feed again in the spring. A lot of oysters don't make it through the winter, but so they need to prepare for that long winter, and that means in the fall and early winter they're in prime condition. They're bulked up, and their shells are full of meat and rich fat, really, and that's what makes it so good. Summertime is not the best time to eat them, especially if they just spawned, because a lot of their energy has gone into reproducing, so they can be a little bit lean and not as rich. But as far as harvesting, we're not bound by the same rules as harvesting the wild oysters. These are our oysters. We put them there. We can harvest them any time we want.